Sanibonani Mzansi. I am your host Candice Kumalo and I welcome you to another episode of the Health from Mzansi podcast. In today's episode, we'll be discussing overthinking, the mental equivalent of being stuck on repeat, replaying the same scenarios, analyzing every possible outcome, and ultimately draining our energy and peace of mind. Psychologist Noluthando Javu joins me in this episode to explore the whys and hows of overthinking.
Hello, Candice. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Noluthando Javu. I am a counseling psychologist in practice. So at the moment, I am seeing clients and practicing in private practice.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Noluthando. I think let's maybe begin by highlighting the layouts of our topic of today, overthinking. So what are the most common signs and symptoms of overthinking, and how can people identify if they're overthinking?
I would say the most common ones would be self-criticism and a lot of worry and anxiousness. Also fixating on things that are outside of your control. Another one that I think is the most common is replaying situations in your head. So something happens and you keep on thinking about the same situation over and over again. And that would be one of the ways that you can identify if you're an overthinker, that replaying situations. And a lot of the time it happens where you replay situations and you're analyzing those situations with the intention of almost finding something wrong with it, or you've highlighted something that isn't so right in a situation. Also negative thoughts that follow that, second guessing yourself as well. So those are some of the signs that I would say are the most common and people are most likely to present with.
Can you just touch on how overthinking impacts mental health, relationships, and our daily lives?
It's a vicious cycle at that, never ending. On the one side, it can be a symptom of depression and anxiety. It also can cause a lot of stress. In the ways that it affects your daily life, it shows up in your relationships in that you lack trust in the people around you. Constantly jumping into conclusions or assuming the worst. You are fearful of how people are going to react to the things that you will do. The communication then obviously becomes affected by this. How you communicate with your friends, with your family, with your partner becomes impacted by this because you're afraid of saying things in fear of how the person is going to respond. That also can come with a lot of relationship anxiety, needing that constant reassurance from people around you, wanting to have control over a lot of the things as well. So it starts with a small thing, obviously replaying things, but it almost boils down to a lot of other things.
So, Noluthando, what would you say are some effective strategies you would recommend for managing overthinking?
Firstly, identifying it, obviously. And then in terms of managing it, let's say before we even think about going to therapy, I would think identifying interpersonal skills that you think you need to work on. If you are self-critical, then you need to work on your self-confidence, your self-control, having a lot more self-awareness and knowing exactly what are some situations that trigger you the most. And something that a lot of people don't consider is meditating. So meditation with the intention of saying positive affirmations to yourself, but also just to shut down your mind for a bit and control your thoughts a little bit more. And then communicating. So learning how to communicate effectively and thinking about the ways in which you are communicating. Then lastly, I would definitely say therapy and also identifying what is in your control and what isn't in your control.
Noluthando, I believe you touched briefly on the next part of my question, but how can people break the cycle of negative thought patterns and rewire their brains for more positive thinking?
My response will obviously be by going to therapy. And the reason why I say that is because therapy will allow you to work on identifying your negative thought patterns and then helping you in terms of restructuring those negative thought patterns. And if you do that, then you're most likely to see a change in your personal life as well and your approach to life in general.
So in closing, Noluthando, what words of advice would you offer to someone out there who's struggling with overthinking?
I'd say that overthinking does affect more people than we can imagine. And sometimes you think you're the only person that is experiencing this thing. And it becomes like a taboo thing where you want to go through it alone. But it doesn't have to control your whole life. If overthinking is taking a toll on you, I would say that you should please reach out to a professional to get help. But even talking to the people around you, sometimes it's knowing that you're not alone and that people can see what you're going through as well, but to identify it before it becomes a bigger problem than it needs to be.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Health from Zanzi podcast. To find out more about being the healthiest version of yourself, visit healthfromzanzi.co.za, or you can send us an email to hello@healthfromzanzi.co.za. This is the Health from Zanzi podcast, and your ears are always invited. So there you have it. Overthinking can be both a motivator and a roadblock. But here's the thing. The goal is not to stop thinking altogether, but to find a healthy balance of your thoughts. So the next time you find yourself overthinking the what ifs and maybes, take a deep breath and remember the insights and strategies shared with you today to start cultivating a more peaceful, present, and productive relationship with your mind. Stay healthy and fancy. I am your host, Candice Kumalo. Until next time.